Hi, mystery readers. I'm Alexandra Amore. This is It's a Mystery Podcast, and I'm here today with Sean Cameron. Hi, Sean.
Hello.
How are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. So let me let our listeners know a little bit about you. Sean Cameron is a writer who has previously worked as an online content producer, music journalist, and a video game writer. He's the author of the British comedy mystery series Rex and Eddie Mysteries. The books follow Rex and Eddie, a pair of inept private detectives who bumble their way through cases in the drowsy town of Cloisterham. Filled with witty dialogue, silly hijinks, and clever twists, this daft noir series is equal parts a British comedy and gripping thriller. Born and raised in Rochester, England, Sean lives in Los Angeles with his American wife and toddler. So first off, Sean, I loved the phrase daft noir. Did you make that up?
Yes.
Oh, you did? It's
yes.
Awesome. It's incredible. So then following on from that, when you thought about writing books, had you always thought they would be in this tone, or did this surprise you?
I've always written things in that sort of silly tone. And originally I just wanted to make something about two guys that wanted to be detectives but could never find a legitimate, exciting case. And it would be about their frustrations. But then I realised that wouldn't be as interesting. So to just throw them in the deep end instead and watch all that stuff happen made it like a solid noir and also very daft. So
yes.
That's okay.
Fantastic. And so tell us then a little bit about Rex and Eddie. So, Eddie is a security guard, but it's Rex that has the idea, to go into the private detective business.
Yeah, so the first book starts, they're both security guards in a sort of rundown shopping mall. And Eddie's quite sort of satisfied just keeping the peace and not doing anything. But Rex is always looking for the criminal element. So he's always eyeballing the customers going around being that person's doing this and that person. So he's always trying to get involved. And that sort of leads to them getting fired. And they're in need of a new job, and the idea is that they've always worked together. They've been best friends for as long as they can remember, and they always work together, and now they pretty much have run out of job options, so they have to go into business themselves.
Oh, great. And I saw this quote that Rex says, well, Batman didn't have a license either. So
yes, that's right.
So why shouldn't we go into business for ourselves? That's awesome. So they just sort of operate independently? They don't go to private detective school or anything?
No, technically you don't actually need a license in England, but I think it's useful to have one, probably.
Possibly.
But so they're basically amateurs that pay rent for an office. That's what makes them look professional, is that they have an office.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And so tell us then a little bit more about the first book. What do they encounter?
The first book is called Catchy Monkey, and that's catch with two E's at the end. It's the softly catchy monkey is the phrase. It's like an old Boy Scouts phrase.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. All right.
Yeah, but they don't really do anything softly. They go very, very gung-ho. The first book is just sort of them deciding to be detectives and then getting involved in a case because they literally just find the chalk outline of a man in the office that they rent and sort of get involved in finding out what that chalk outline is and trying to find their case like that. Sorry, I'm getting a bit lost.
No, that's okay. So no one hires them, essentially?
No one hires them, no. They can't get hired in their first case. But they find that there's a... Sorry, can I start from the beginning?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, we can edit. So tell us a little bit about the first book, Catchy Monkey.
So the first book in the series is Catchy Monkey, and Rex and Eddie are two friends in a newly formed detective agency, but they're not really getting any cases yet. They have a phone, they have an office, no one's calling, but they find a chalk outline in the office when they rip up the carpets. And after doing a bit of research online, they find out there's actually a reward for any information about the murder. So they decide to take it upon themselves to solve the case.
Oh, fantastic. Okay. I like this sort of intrepid, do-it-yourself attitude.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. And I read the first bit of Catchy Monkey, and the prologue just killed me, or it might have been chapter 1, with the cleaning fellow who finds the body.
Yes.
And it was very funny, and I just wondered, I mean, I love, excuse me, I love when there's humor in mystery novels. Mm-hmm. And it's a really razor sharp line to walk. Do you find that you have to work at being funny, or does that just come naturally to you?
I think I had to work on it like my whole life. Like I remember being like, maybe 19, 20 years old and talking to my cousin, and my cousin was like, "You're funny. You used to try to be funny, but you're actually funny now." So, I think, I worked on that craft for a while. So I spent many years just not being funny, but trying.
Well, it's such a nice thing to bring to books like this, and they're set, as we mentioned, in the town of Cloisterham, and there's a Charles Dickens connection there. So tell us about that.
Yeah, so I'm actually from a town called Rochester in Kent, in the southeast of England, and Charles Dickens lived nearby, and he set a lot of books in Rochester, like Great Expectations is set there. You can actually, I've walked past Miss Havisham's house like a million times and stuff, and there's like a Dickens festival every year, I think twice, the spring and the summer. I mean, the spring and the winter, there's Dickens festivals where people dress up like the characters and stuff. But his last book, The Mystery of Edwin Drood, is set in Cloisterham. And I think that the reason why he chose to do that is because he wanted to make fun of Rochester a little bit. So he changed the name to Cloisterham, and he changed a few names, like there's a building called Eastgate House, so he called it Westgate House. So in my book series, I decided to set it in Cloisterham so I can make fun of it in the same way, and then I can also flip the names of things in the same way. So instead of Splashes swimming pool, they go to Waves swimming pool and things like that.
Yes, yeah, exactly. And we mentioned in your introduction too that you live in Los Angeles now.
Yes.
But you obviously know enough about the town that you can remember what it was like.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I go back every year or so to see my family. All my family's still there.
Okay.
And so now it's like when I'm writing a book, I'm like, I'm going to set it in that building. Sometimes I have to go on Google Maps just to find the image of it, and then other times when I'm home, I just go around taking photos and get a feel for that area again. Right.
Yeah. Okay. And we mentioned also in the introduction that you were a music journalist at one point, and music is obviously important to you. I was on your blog, and you've posted a couple of interesting things. One of them was a playlist of music that you listen to while you're writing the books.
Yeah, that's right. I've got a Rex Neddy soundtrack. Yes. That is music I write to and suggest that people can use it whilst they're reading as well.
Yes.
And it's a mixture of sort of thriller and mystery things, mystery soundtracks, and sort of upbeat songs that seem like they should have a car chase to them.
Yeah, great. And then the other thing I noticed you had on your website is too, you mentioned that you're in the process of producing the audiobooks.
Yes.
To go with the books. And so one cool thing is you've got a little place there where people can vote. So you're choosing music that will go, where does the music go in the audiobooks?
It's the introduction music, like the theme tune.
Yes, the theme tune.
Yeah.
And so I voted for The Builder. There are two options. Yeah. And that one is way ahead, by the way. I don't know if you've looked lately.
Yeah, that's way ahead. It's cool because it's like I got my newsletter, so I got to ask my newsletter followers, like, hey, click this link, tell me which one you want, because they're going to be the customers. So it's good to sort of get that sort of instant feedback from the readers, like how they think it should go.
Yes, yeah, exactly. And so tell us a little bit about audiobook production. And so I'll just say in advance for anybody listening. So when an author like Sean or myself is independently published, it's up to us if we want to produce the audiobook. And there are a couple of ways to go about that. We can hire narrators, or we can do the audiobook production ourselves, which involves much more technology and that kind of things. So tell us a bit about what that experience has been like for you.
Yeah, well, I used to work in my music journalism type job that I had. It was, that we also had a component where we made a video show, and I used to record the voiceovers for that. So I used to sit in the booth and have the presenter in the booth and give them the script and say, do it like this, do it like that, and how are those levels and stuff. So I got to experience being the producer of audio in that way as well. So I decided to jump in and do the audio myself for these books. And also I deliberately set Rex and Eddie in the same town I grew up in so that everyone would sound like me. Like if I was making a book series set in the Old West, I wouldn't be the best voice for that.
No, exactly. Or in Australia.
Yeah, I can't do that. It's even to the point where if I'm writing a book and I'm like, oh, I'll have an Irish villain, I'm like, actually, maybe I won't have an Irish villain because that will set me up down the line, sort of thing. Yeah, so I've got the kit and I've been experimenting with it and just trying to get into the flow of it. So I've not gone all in yet, but
giving it a go. Yeah.
Giving it a go and then working out the best way to move forward. Like there's the whole process with, like uploading it to Amazon's ACX is that they can, when you upload it to ACX, which is Amazon's company for audiobooks, they can tell you what the quality's like, whether it needs to be better or whatever. So you just do sort of like a 10-minute chunk, upload it, see how they feel.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Oh, fascinating. Okay. And so what's it like reading your own work? Is it easy? Is it challenging?
It's quite fun. I think that, I've done a live reading before. There was an event in Burbank where I got, invited to do a live reading, and then I got all sort of neurotic about which like 10 minutes to choose, that sort of where you could drop in and understand the characters and the stakes, but still actually come out at the end 10 minutes with like an emotional storytelling payoff. But I picked a 10-minute section which involved Eddie sneaking into the back of someone's garden to try and find out what they're up to, and then getting chased by the dog and all this other stuff. And when I was reading it live, it was great because I got like immediate feedback. Because it's a comedy book, you can tell that someone finds it funny because they're laughing. So
yeah,
that was great. But I think locking myself into a little room for a couple of hours, you won't quite have that.
No, exactly. And
a faster turnaround.
And so speaking of locking yourself in a little room, so the other thing with audiobooks too is that you have to be really conscientious about the sound quality. And you can't just be anywhere, because the sound can get quite echoey. So do you rent a booth, or how do you do it?
I've decked out a cupboard.
Okay.
I don't know how effective it is, but this is my foam. I'm holding up a foam piece right now. I was just holding that around my microphone that I'm using for this interview.
Okay.
But I've got a cupboard that's covered in that.
Oh, so you've covered the walls.
Yes, I've covered the walls.
Oh.
And I've got my popper.
Yeah.
To make sure I don't pop when I do it. My main thing is just making sure I don't speak too fast and that I speak clearly. So
yes, yeah, I've had a similar experience doing a little short reading. I think mine was 5 minutes or something, and it's difficult to choose a piece of writing that you can squeeze into that amount of time, and then, as you say, have a little arc on its own, and not just leave people right in the middle of something. And what I found when I was doing it was that I had trouble reading and breathing at the same time. So,
yeah.
So I would kind of get my words were kind of ahead of myself, and I would forget to breathe, and then I'd have to take this big sort of gasping breath. But I imagine with practice, like anything, you get better at it.
Yeah.
And do you enjoy it?
Do you enjoy
the whole process? Do you like it as much as you like writing, or?
So just let me collect my thoughts. I know you said that you can edit, but I don't want to give you too many edit points. Yeah, I enjoy it. I think it's a really a fun process, and I actually like picking the theme tune before getting really deep into the recording was kind of like a way of G'ing myself up that I've got this little music that sort of summarizes the tone and vibe that I want the thing to have, so I can just sort of match that energy.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, well said. Yeah, that makes complete sense. And then so there are 3 books in the series now. Remind us of the titles. So Catchy Monkey is first.
Yeah, the first book is Catchy Monkey, and then the second book is Feline Fatale, which is about trying to find a missing cat. And then the third book is The Office Spy, where they get hired to try and find a corporate spy that's leaking out secrets to a competitor.
And then you have a 4th one that's coming out just about the time that we're going to release this podcast. So tell us a little bit about that. That's The Third Banana.
It's called The Third Banana. So it's the 4th book, but it's called The Third Banana, which is a bit confusing. But the Third Bananas, Rex and Eddie are like hired to follow a guy because his sister's a bit worried that he seems a bit tetchy, he's like involved in something. And whilst they're trying to watch him, they actually end up just witnessing his kidnapping. But they're a bit too slow to do anything about it. So they're trying to find out who kidnapped him and how to sort it out. But it turns out that their case converges with the case of another man who's actually a legitimate detective. Like, he's got the experience, he's got the strength, he's got the look and all the rest of it. So they kind of keep ruining his case, and it's about them like going head to head, and sort of Rex and Eddie feeling inadequate to him, and that sort of
those sort of adventures. Yeah, yes. Exactly. And the other thing I noticed about the books is they're a little bit shorter, and I've been writing shorter mysteries this year so far myself as well. And so was that a conscious decision on your part, or was it a marketing strategy?
Well, the first book was meant to be 25,000 as a novella, but I was setting everything up and it just blew up to 40,000. And then the 2 sequels stayed at like 27,000. But the Third Banana is actually 65,000, so that's more of a novel now that they're really getting involved in bigger cases and stuff.
Okay, and is this sort of your first venture into writing, or I mean, other than the journalism and stuff that you did, had you tried any other kinds of novels or other kinds of mysteries?
I'd always tried to work at writing screenplays and writing in the script form and sending those out. And then I did get a job as a writer for a video game at one point, which was script writing and stuff. And that helped sort of hone my my writing so that I could get a lot across in a very short space of time, because you're with screenwriting you just have to make the statement and move on. And it was a good way to practice dialogue, because you've got that sort of rat-a-tat going forward. So my books are very sort of dialogue heavy. The dialogue is what shows a lot of character and moves the plot forward. And but then, as Kindle's sales and the whole indie writing, indie publishing stuff grew, I just sort of got more drawn to that and was paying more attention to that I decided to write something. So I did write one thing that was more of a paranormal mystery. And so I just wrote that, but it was setting up the world, and because it was a paranormal thing, you kind of have to set up a real world and then an imaginary world and the rules of what the paranormal thing is and all the rest of it. I was getting a bit involved, but I'd already written Rex and Eddie as a web series. I made these short little videos about 2 guys in a car on a stakeout. And I was just I know Rex and Eddie. They've been in my head for 10 years. I know my hometown where it's set, and I can just really get in and tell those stories a lot easier. It felt more free flowing. So
yes,
I dove back into Rex and Eddie.
Yes. Oh, that's great. And I imagine, do you have plans to keep going with Rex and Eddie?
Yes. The 4th book is, I'm just doing a final edit before I send that to the proofreaders now. That's The Third Banana. And I've already got a 5th book. I've already done the first draft of the 5th book. And then I've got like outlines for like another 5 books. So
nice.
Right now I'm going to get to book 5, and then I'm going to get like the box set out, and I'm going to get the audio books out, and then go back in and start working on the second box set. Yeah.
Yes. Oh, fantastic. And we'll put links in the show notes, and people can go and see your little writing cubby that we mentioned earlier, and now you have it decked out with the foamy walls for doing audiobook production. So is that where you physically write as well?
Yeah, I actually, I move around a lot. I've got a 2-year-old, and she doesn't really let me in my cupboard very often anymore, because it's like to the living room, so she knows I'm in there, so I can just hear like, knock, 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 daddy.
Oh.
So I move around. I'm in the bedroom right now. I go to coffee shops. I go to the local library. The local library actually got these like cool dark brown wood tables with the little lanterns for like reading lights and stuff like that, and it feels quite nice. It feels like a good place to write. So yeah, I do whatever works on any given day. I move around.
Exactly. And do you have I always like to ask writers this, if you have a certain routine, like a time of day, or do you try to hit a word count or anything like that?
Again, I just do what works in a week. Like me and my wife have to sort of schedule what she's doing that week and what I'm doing, and where the toddler's going to be, and then work around what obstacles come up on a week by week basis.
Yes. Okay, I got it. The things that you have to deal with when you're a parent and a writer, right?
Yeah.
Well, this has been great, Sean, and it's been lovely chatting with you. And I just want to mention before we go too, I loved the tagline for the first book, which is 2 detectives, 1 murder, no clue. I thought that was awesome.
Thanks.
So why don't you let our listeners know more about where they can find you and your books?
Yeah, my website is sean-cameron.com, and on there's a link to get the Rex Nelly starter pack, which is actually book 1 and book 2. But book 1's also available for free on Amazon and iBooks and Kobo and all the sort of regular places. And then you can find me on Twitter at seancameron.uk. I mean, not .uk, sorry. You can find me on Twitter at Sean Cameron UK, and on Facebook I'm Sean Cameron Author, and Sean is spelled S-E-A-N.
Great. Okay, perfect. And I'll put links to all of that in the show notes at itsamysterypodcast.com as well. Well, thank you so much, Sean. This has been amazing. Take care.
Okay, thanks for having me.
Bye-bye.
Bye.